he's as good as anybody maybe in college football as far as his arm talent. That was Kirk Herbstreit on Carson Beck, Dean Legge, Matt DeBerry. Matt, listen, you saw Carson sometime, was it 5 years ago now down there in Jacksonville?
2019 Halloween.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
almost 5 years ago, I went just after that to go talk to him for some time the summer going into his senior season. So we've been around Carson Beck for some time in terms of what to expect. What should people expect? I mean, if Kirk Herbstreit says he's as good as anybody maybe in college football as far as arm talent, that's not the first time I've heard that, for the record.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's correct. Does he have enough arm talent or as much as Caleb Williams? I wouldn't think so. Or Michael Penix Jr. out in Washington. I mean, Drake May at North Carolina is supposed to be this, crazy arm talent type of kid who could be a top 5 pick. But Carson can sling it. We've seen that, and we've seen it, when he's come in, as a backup, as a reserve. But as far as what Georgia fans should expect from him is a guy who knows how to play the position, Dean. And we talk about that a lot, but he is calm, he's poised, he's accurate. And there are a lot of players who have told us over the last several years that Carson, can really throw it. And they love it when they're getting reps with Carson because they know the ball's going to come in hot, and more often than not in a really good place. And Kirby did say recently that Carson almost won the job. That UAB week, he was taking reps with the ones, but they felt like that Stetson was the safest option. They got it right. But Carson came really close to taking over as the quarterback for this program not only last year, but 2 years ago. So he's a very talented kid who can throw the ball, and he's been in the program for a few years now. I expect him to take care of the football, make smart decisions, and showcase that arm talent that a lot of people are talking about.
Hey, make sure you're signing up for Dog Post right now. The link is right down below. This is about the last time you're going to get a chance to do this. If you sign up below, you're going to get 2023 preview. You're going to get 20% off any item at Red Zone. You're going to get a free T-shirt. Those things are all in play. If you bought Double Dogs, you're going to get an extra month. You better take advantage of this right now. Matt, I want to get back to the discussion you had a second ago. Was that quick enough?
I like that.
Yeah, that was in and out. Good. Hey, I don't think he has the arm talent of Caleb Williams, but I also think that those are two different types of players. I need to watch Drake May more, man. I will admit that I watch a fair amount of the ACC, but it's mainly Clemson and Florida State and that group. It's not been Carolina and Tech. It's not been Carolina. I don't know that I've seen Pinnock when he was at Indiana, and now with him being at UW. Slightly different type of quarterback. Carson is very gifted in terms of his arm, but dude, this is not just about playing. We're not throwing the football. We're playing quarterback, and I think that's the part where he's grown the most. I do want to say this before I throw it back to you. He got outplayed that week by Stetson 2 years ago for UAB. Todd Monken. I was talking to Todd Monken for a long time before the Ohio State game, just to kind of get some things squared away. And he said, Stetson it wasn't close, that Stetson just beat him out. Stetson had been a starting quarterback at Jones. He had been the backup at Georgia he'd been the starter at Georgia.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Carson was completely prepared for what was coming, and Stetson just beat him out. But in terms of, I think there could be some people who are at the end of September like, oh man, Georgia's got a really good quarterback, and it's not someone named Stetson Bennett.
Yeah, I think as far as NFL potential, you could probably say Carson has more NFL potential than Stetson Bennett. And Quinn Ewers is another guy who apparently has all-world arm talent, number one player out of high school, a lot of expectations for him. So there are a lot of quarterbacks that I think are really good this upcoming season. And I do think Carson, because he's not a returning starter, is a guy that a lot of, casual college football fans are like, wow, like this guy is really good. And Georgia's had him for how long now? I mean, people are going to start to know who Carson Beck is sooner than later. And again, he's got a couple cupcakes, to start the season off to look really good, but he's going to have to play big in those big games. And I think he has the potential to do that. When I saw him in high school, it was a really important game. They weren't as good as what they were as when he was a junior, when he led them to the championship, but he threw for 4 touchdowns in a game against, I think, a crosstown rival that meant a lot, and he played really well. So the kid has it, and I think he's going to impress a lot of people.
Well, we're going to see, right? I mean, I think if he plays the way that he did in 2022 when he was in there, I mean, that wouldn't just be really good. That would get him to New York. I don't know that
Yeah.
he'd win the Heisman, but those were really good. That was really good production. That was against South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Texas Christian, Georgia Tech, and Auburn. And did I say Vanderbilt? So there were some games there for him that were against legitimate teams. It was garbage time, but he didn't. As I said to Ryan, it was garbage time, but he didn't play like garbage. And it's not.
I like that.
Yeah, it's not who you play; it's how you play. And he's played well. My expectations for Carson Beck, they're high because I've seen him. I know what he can do. You know, I've been hearing this, man. I have been hearing this since 2020. I don't know if you remember the conversation. You know what I'm talking about?
I think so, but he's been on the roster, it feels like, so long. And even in high school, we knew that the staff really liked him. So
yes.
It's about time. It's finally Carson's time to lead this team. And I'm excited for him because we've both, heard a lot about him and what he can do and the throws he can make. And we've seen a little bit. Now we get to see a lot.
Yeah. And, no one game is the definitive statement on a player or a season or whatever, particularly when it's 8% of your year. And, when you go to Georgia, well, one of the things that Carson and I talked about back in the day was how important playing the Gators would be for him in Jacksonville, and, that was his recruiting was a challenging situation. When you live in Jacksonville, which is an hour and a half from, where I'm going with this, and you're an hour and a half from Florida, and there's a lot of Gators in Jacksonville, and this guy, he's got to hear about it a lot. I think Florida definitely pursued him in a very serious way, as did Alabama. But I remember talking to his coach, and he said, he just went up to Georgia, and it just clicked, and boom, he said, I didn't think it would be this quick, but it was like a week or two later that he had committed to Georgia. And a lot of us didn't know a lot about Carson Beck at the time, Matt, but it's proven out that he's been we're going to see. But I think in 2020, I remember walking to a game and running into somebody who knows something about this situation. And their comment was, that Kirby's criticism of Carson Beck in 2020 was that he had no experience and that they just weren't gonna. I mean, that quarterback situation was such a mess, Matt, that they weren't gonna roll the dice with Carson Beck. Whether Carson realized that or not, I don't know. Because there I am sitting in Fayetteville, and Dwan Mathis looks completely overwhelmed. And I thought Georgia might lose that game, and I was like, are they gonna put Carson Beck in here right now? Because Stetson Bennett wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
So that's how long this has been that I've been hearing about Carson Beck in some way. Now they're not. Let me just say this before I throw you. They're not acting like he's the best quarterback in college football, or at least they weren't then. But they're just saying, hey, this guy's got some real talent.
Yeah. Well, we nailed his recruitment. I remember that. We were on top of that bad boy. But no, it's the players like him too. Darnell Washington loved the fact that they had Carson Beck. Jermaine Burton was a late kind of flip. He went from Miami to LSU and then to Georgia, but Carson Beck was the guy that he wanted to play with. They knew that he could throw the ball, and I think it's better for him. He's more comfortable now that Kirby has come out and said it and made it the starter. We've been talking about it all spring. I think everyone kind of knew after the G-Day game. I think one of our videos was we declared it was over, but that has to feel good for him. Maybe he kind of knew, but it's nice to hear. But I think he should be ready, Dean.
He should be, but we're going to see. I mean, this is a team and a program that has got a lot of expectation. Carson is not. Carson is an asset. He's not just some guy that, is on the roster, so to speak. I mean, he is an important part of this team, this program, and all of it. But I don't know. I think I'm expecting a lot from him this season. We're going to see how this goes. But I expect. I mean, give me what you think will happen with Carson on Saturday before we get off.
I think he looks good. I think being behind that offensive line is key. I don't think he's going to get a lot of pressure on him. Just don't turn the ball over. Make the throws he's supposed to make the right reads. Don't turn the ball over. I'm not saying he's going to go and throw for 300 yards,
Well, he could,
but
though.
I think he could. But I think he has a solid, multi touchdown, no turnover type of game.
All right, thanks for watching.